Tonight, violent storms targeting the East Coast after deadly tornadoes sweep across the country. A potent storm system unleashing dozens of twisters across several states. At least 20 people killed, neighborhoods left in ruins, hundreds of thousands without power. This system on the move, threatening major East Coast airports and highways all along the I-95 corridor. Severe weather creating chaos as holiday weekend travel reaches record-breaking numbers. We're tracking it all. Also tonight, Memorial Day weekend violence in New Jersey. Terrifying moments as beachgoers scream and run after false reports of a shooting. A neighboring town declaring a state of emergency as crowds grow volatile. In Boston, a man stabbed near a popular beach after a 100-person fight. The alarming incidents causing concern as crime surges during the summer months. Refugee camp airstrike, dozens, including children, killed after an Israeli bombardment at a camp for displaced Palestinians. Startling images as the area is engulfed in flames, scenes of grief and heartbreak as families pick through what remains of their homes. The Israeli prime minister calling the strike a tragic incident as global outrage mounts. A volcanic eruption in Indonesia sending ash spewing miles high. The explosion caught on security camera footage as villages are evacuated. Plus, can red carpet clash. Stars locked in heated exchanges with a security guard at the International Film Festival. Singer Kelly Rowland going viral for snapping back as she was ushered off of the carpet. The dramatic confrontations playing out off the big screen. And honoring the ultimate sacrifice overseas. A woman in France making sure an American soldier who fought to liberate her country in World War II is never forgotten. Her touching tribute passed down to other generations. Top Story starts right now. Good evening. I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom Llamas. Tonight, severe storms charging across the East Coast after a tragic holiday weekend. Tornadoes tearing across the country, killing at least 21 people, including children. Massive twisters carving across more than a dozen states. The worst of the storms slamming the plains and the heartland in the dangerous overnight hours. The series of powerful storms leaving a widespread trail of destruction. Dawson, Kentucky hit hard. The National Weather Service issuing a rare tornado emergency just moments before that twister touched down. And listen to the terrifying moments a tornado struck a gas station in Texas. More than 100 people were sheltering there, many ditching their cars and running inside just before that storm moved in. Daylight revealing destroyed remnants of that gas station. Officials saying it was a miracle everyone survived. Right now, power outages from this sprawling system are mounting, with more than 330,000 customers in the dark. The severe weather colliding with the busy holiday weekend travel, the unofficial start to summer, shattering records, signaling a busy few months ahead. At this hour, delays and cancellations continue to climb, especially in the Northeast, with the hardest hit airports just as millions head home from their holiday destinations. Right now, severe storms are stretching across the eastern seaboard. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is standing by to time it out. But we begin with NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson.
We're in it, we're in it.
Oh, there it is. Go, go, go.
Tonight, the vicious storms that battered the heartland, barreling east, drenching New York City and parts of the coast. After tearing a cross-country path of destruction.
Oh, it's terrible, terrible, terrible. You won't never be the same.
More than 20 people have died in Memorial Day weekend storms after upwards of 60 reported tornadoes across a dozen states.
When it hit the floors, you could just feel the floors just wave Cali up and down.
In Kentucky, this massive twister touched down in Eddyville. The damage in nearby Dawson Springs, where a tornado seemingly cut clear across town, shredding entire homes. Our Kathy Park is there.
The dangerous storms blew in overnight, catching many people off guard, including one couple in their 90s. We're told they were on this bed as the extreme winds tore their house apart. Incredibly, they survived.
In hard-hit Arkansas, streets littered with debris. Winds so powerful, they ripped off the front of this dollar store. Here in Valley View, Texas, officials now say 125 people were trapped in this rubble after the gas station they were sheltering in crumbled.
It felt like I was living in a nightmare.
Among them, Elizabeth Hernandez, who filmed this terrifying video.
What was the scariest moment?
When it actually hit and we could feel the wind of it. Like it felt like we were outside. I was just waiting for us to be either lifted up or something to smash on us.
Less than a mile up the road, Monica Vasquez was in a closet with her husband and 5 children, the youngest just 3 years old.
What was going through your mind?
I don't want to die.
And Priscilla joins us now from hard-hit Valley View, Texas, that is just north of Dallas. Priscilla, this is a community that has lost so much and still has so many injured. What are you seeing there right now?
Yeah, Ellison, so many people injured. And when you see this devastation, you understand why. We are standing on the foundation of a home. That house is now over there, the second floor gone, as communities like this one across the country are continuing to clean up tonight. Ellison?
Gutting images. Priscilla Thompson, thank you. And that deadly storm system also turning a record-breaking travel weekend into a travel nightmare. Millions of Americans are driving and flying home today, facing slick roads and thousands of delayed and canceled flights. Many of those delays are here in New York and down in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where we find NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar. Priya, what are you hearing? What are you seeing as you are at the airport there? What have travelers told you about their journey to just make it home this holiday weekend?
That's right, Ellison. Well, this is the world's busiest airport, so when records are broken when it comes to travel, you can imagine there are extremely long lines here. TSA recorded its biggest single day ever of passenger screenings on Friday, with 3 million passengers crossing through their security checkpoints. Between Thursday and Sunday, 18 million people passed through TSA security checkpoints. Here at the Atlanta airport, Thursday was actually the busiest day, with almost 111,000 people passing through here, around 110,000 on Friday. So every single day has just been a massive day for travel. Now, as you mentioned, that severe weather system that's been moving across the Midwest has headed to the East Coast, and it's caused a lot of flight delays and cancellations. More than 6,000 delays nationwide so far. You can take a look at this map. Almost 500 cancellations across the country. Some of the biggest airports that have been hit by those delays and cancellations are on the East Coast: Boston, New York City, D.C., and Atlanta. LaGuardia and JFK and here in Atlanta all were issued ground stops by the FAA today, which made matters worse for the millions of people that are traveling, Ellison.
I mean, Priya, just looking at those numbers, I think the question the average person, and I'm talking about myself here, has when they see that is, oh my goodness, that's got to take a long time to sort out. Do you have a sense of how long it will actually take for the airlines to sort out the delays and cancellations?
So the good news is, at least for folks in New York City, LaGuardia specifically, it's looking like that those delay numbers are actually decreasing. Here in Atlanta, unfortunately, it seems like the delay numbers are increasing and those cancellations as well. Many of those folks actually heading over to New York that I've spoken with. So a lot of them are having to get hotel rooms for the night, and they're planning on traveling tomorrow. But unfortunately, Ellison, tomorrow is actually expected to be an even bigger travel day than today. So for those of you who thought, you know what, I'm going to skip the Memorial Day crowds and head back home on Tuesday, you might be facing long lines tomorrow as well, Ellison.
NBC's Priya Sridhar in Atlanta, thank you so much. Much of the East is still struggling with this severe weather. So let's bring in NBC News meteorologist Michelle Grossman, who joins us now in studio. Michelle, I mean, in Brooklyn today, it seemed like the rain would never end. When can people on the East Coast expect to get some relief? I know you are also monitoring pretty high temperatures, triple digits down south.
Yeah, very stormy and steamy, and the steam is actually adding to some of these storms. So even taking a look at radar, you can see how active we are at this hour. We have thunderstorm watches. That is in the yellow. Severe thunderstorm warnings in the orange boxes, south central states into the southeast, even back to the Midwest. We're looking at some strong storms. And then we have a tornado watch box. That's through the mid-Atlantic, including D.C. through 11 o'clock tonight. Above that, we're looking at severe thunderstorm warning. And that's because we're looking at isolated storms. They don't have the power of what we saw over the weekend, but still has some high impacts in terms of some hail, some really heavy downpours. It's tapping into a lot of humidity. We're going to see anywhere from 4 or 5 inches in some of those heaviest downpours. Still 62 million people at risk for severe weather. Look how long this stretches, right? From New England, the Great Lakes, into the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, the Carolinas, the Southeast, even over to the South Central states. And then tomorrow we're going to see another round of storms in the South Central states. Any of these storms could bring winds gusting over 60 miles per hour. That could certainly bring down some trees, some power lines, causing some power outages. And remember, it's very steamy in a lot of spots. Large hail up to 2 inches or larger, and that could cause damage on its own. And we are watching the chance for a few tornadoes, although that's lower on the scale of risks. High rates of rainfall. We're looking anywhere from 4, even 5 inches in some of these downpours. That's because we're going to see storms kind of get stuck and sort of train over the same areas. So where you see these darker colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, that's where we're expecting the highest amounts of rain. And Ellison, we saw temperatures into the triple digits today in Texas. Houston getting the first excessive heat warning in the month of May ever. Back to you.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman, thank you. Turning now to a string of violent incidents in beach communities this Memorial Day weekend. A 15-year-old girl shot and killed, several others injured in stabbings. Why experts say the warmer weather could be causing an uptick in violence. NBC News correspondent Erin McLaughlin has the latest.
A Memorial Day weekend of violence at beach communities from Virginia to Massachusetts. In Ocean City, New Jersey, beachgoers sent running for their lives after a 15-year-old boy was stabbed at the popular summer destination. That boy rushed to the hospital and is expected to survive, but authorities are still searching for a suspect. Less than 70 miles up the Jersey shore, false reports of a shooting sending people scrambling. And in Wildwood, police overwhelmed by what authorities call civil unrest. The city shutting down its boardwalk, temporarily instituting a state of emergency to restore order. Several people arrested and a curfew remains in place. In Virginia Beach, the holiday weekend violence turning deadly. A 15-year-old girl gunned down outside a summer carnival after a fight broke out in the parking lot. Another man injured.
I overhear people talking about all sorts of fights and whatnot occurring. So I'm standing out there, and not even 2 minutes after that, I hear gunshots and people scurrying toward me. And on the other side of the road, more gunshots.
And in Massachusetts, a man stabbed during a massive brawl at Boston's Carson Beach. Police say as many as 100 people were involved, scattering when authorities arrived. Just hours before, officials giving a press conference at that beach, discussing how they plan to address violence there this summer.
We usually have dedicated patrols right here at Carson M Street Beach. We're doing that this summer at Castle Island, both from the public health and safety side.
The string of incidents pointing to what experts say is an uptick in violent crime during the summer months.
Research shows that when the temperatures go up, temperaments go up, and then we see more violence because people are more aggressive when the temperatures go up.
A weekend meant to mark the unofficial start of summer, marked too by tragedy.
And Ellison, the man who was stabbed in that incident in Boston, we're hearing that he is expected to be okay. We were speaking to that former FBI special agent about what authorities can do to kind of cut back on some of this summer violence. And she was saying they really should think about increasing the number of resources available to people who may be in distress. Ellison.
Erin McLaughlin, thank you. Next tonight, the critical week ahead for former President Donald Trump. Closing arguments are set for tomorrow in his criminal hush money trial in New York. This coming as the polls show a tight race between Trump and President Biden. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has the latest on the drama surrounding the Trump world.
Tonight, Donald Trump's lawyers are preparing for the final stretch of his hush money criminal trial in New York. Closing arguments set for tomorrow. Some bystanders waiting in line for courtroom seats since Saturday. The unprecedented legal showdown coming after a busy weekend for the former president. On Sunday, he flew over the Charlotte Motor Speedway in battleground North Carolina, where NASCAR fans gave him a warm reception. Unlike the Libertarian National Political Convention on Saturday, where Mr. Trump was repeatedly booed.
Whoa, that's nice. That's nice.
Only if you want to win. Only if you want to win. Maybe you don't want to win.
Today, the former president lashed out on social media against his legal troubles. Happy Memorial Day to all, including the human scum that is working so hard to destroy our once great country. While at Arlington National Cemetery, President Biden emphasized what has become a central theme of his campaign, defending democracy.
Our democracy is more than just a system of government. It's the very soul of America.
Meanwhile, the Biden campaign is trying out a more aggressive strategy to define Mr. Trump following his trial, including a new ad voiced by actor Robert De Niro.
A dictator to terminate the Constitution.
With more than 5 months to go until Election Day, polls show an extremely tight race. So what happens in a New York courtroom this week could be a pivotal moment. Allison?
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. Now moving overseas into the race against time to find survivors after a massive landslide in Papua New Guinea. Recovery efforts remain underway in a remote mountainous part of the South Pacific island nation, as the government estimates the death toll could pass 2,000. Some of the debris estimated to reach more than 2 stories high. Following it all for us is NBC News international correspondent Megan Fitzgerald. Megan, the Papua New Guinea government has asked for international help here, saying the landslide buried people alive. Do we know what that response looks like?
Well, Allison, as you mentioned, I mean, this really is an all-out race against time. I mean, people are using the most basic means to try and find people, poles and sticks, even their own hands. When you think about how this all happened, in the middle of the night on Friday at around 3 a.m., people were sleeping when this landslide was triggered. According to the government, we know some 150 homes were swallowed. And look, this is an area where they are prone to natural disasters. They're prone to these volcanoes and earthquakes and landslides. But because of that, roads into this remote village were already difficult, now making it almost impossible to try and get in quickly that heavy machinery that's needed to try and find those people who are trapped beneath. Allison?
And Megan, we mentioned the death toll, but estimates of the casualties, they have varied quite a bit. The UN estimates 670 people have been killed, but the island's government says that number is likely closer to 2,000. What have you been able to track down?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We had an opportunity to speak with UN officials today. They're being a little bit more cautious, as you mentioned, putting it at around 670. They have seen that letter that the government has sent saying that it's more than 2,000. They want to be a little bit more cautious because of the scope of what they're dealing with. They also understand just how difficult it is at this moment to try and reach those people who are trapped underneath. So they don't want to put a number on this right now. But look, no doubt about it, this is a devastating situation. The folks on the ground currently working as fast as they can to try and save lives. Allison.
Megan Fitzgerald, thank you. To the Middle East now, and the fallout from an Israeli airstrike on a tent camp in Rafah that left dozens of Palestinians dead, including children and women. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu facing international criticism, calling it a, quote, tragic incident. NBC's Raf Sanchez has more.
Tonight, grief and anger across southern Gaza after an Israeli airstrike hit a camp for displaced people in Rafah, sending flames ripping through tents and killing at least 45 people, many of them women and children, according to the emergency services in Hamas-run Gaza. The IDF said it hit a Hamas compound and killed 2 commanders. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today calling it a tragic incident and promising an investigation. The White House calling the images heartbreaking, saying Israel has the right to pursue Hamas, but must protect civilians. Children were in the streets screaming, this woman says. Meanwhile, U.S. military vessels delivering aid from an American-built temporary pier broke free from their moorings in heavy seas.
This is one of the small military boats that washed up on the beach here in Israel. There's 2 more about 20 miles down the coast in Gaza. U.S. Central Command hoping to get this one free sometime soon.
Back in Rafah, families already displaced several times are picking through charred remains of their tents, salvaging what they can before moving on again in search of safety.
And Egypt says one of its soldiers was killed today in an unusual cross-border gunfight with Israeli troops. Both sides say they're investigating. Ellison?
Raf Sanchez in Tel Aviv. Thank you. Staying overseas tonight, an American congressional delegation is in Taiwan, meeting with the island's new president as Taiwan faces increased threats from China. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles is traveling with the delegation on this critical visit and has this report.
Tonight, the message from Washington to Taipei is crystal clear. We love Taiwan. The first words from House Foreign Affairs Chairman Mike McCall to the island's new president, Lai Ching-te. Taiwan is self-governed, but China claims it as part of its territory. China reacted to Lai's swearing in by moving warships and fighter jets close to Taiwan's shores and warned American leaders not to go to Taiwan. But you came anyway. Why?
Because we support Taiwan. We support freedom and democracy against dictatorships like the one that's very close to where we're sitting right now, the People's Republic of China.
China's aggressive posture has American leaders worried. The U.S. is investing billions of dollars to fortify Taiwan's military with the goal of deterring an attack. But inside this flower market in downtown Taipei, there are little signs of anxiety, with most shoppers telling us that they are happy with the status quo. China had military exercises this week. Does that ever worry you?
Not much, because that's almost become a part of our daily life.
And Ryan joins us now from Taiwan. Ryan, can you tell us a little more about what lawmakers told you about helping Taiwan protect its semiconductor industry and the importance of that industry in the world?
Ellison, this is a top priority for members of this bipartisan delegation. They believe the semiconductor industry is a backbone of the world's economy. 90% of the world's advanced semiconductors are produced right here on this island. They power everything from your iPhone to your car. And Mike McCall, the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee who's leading this delegation, told me that if China were to invade, it would cripple the entire world because that semiconductor supply chain would be completely interrupted. He said it's a big part of the reason why he believes the U.S. needs to continue to support Taiwan to deter any sort of aggression from China. Ellison?
Ryan Nobles reporting in Taipei. Thank you. Still ahead tonight, police investigating a stabbing spree across state lines. 4 girls stabbed inside of a movie theater near Boston. 2 more people targeted at a McDonald's in a nearby town. Now authorities looking into whether a death in Connecticut could be related. Plus, a beloved General Hospital star killed in Los Angeles. The crime he was trying to stop at the time of his death and the search for the gunman. And tense moments on the red carpet in Cannes. Several celebrities pushed along by a security person as they tried to pose for pictures. Why those moments are causing outrage online, with some calling the response racially motivated. Stay with us. We're back now with a shocking headline out of Hollywood. Police there searching for the gunman in Los Angeles after a former star of General Hospital was fatally shot right on the street after suspects were allegedly trying to steal parts from his car. His family telling NBC's Morgan Chesky his final act was saving a coworker's life.
Tonight, a stunning murder in downtown Los Angeles of soap opera star Johnny Wachter. Police say they're searching for 3 suspects after the 37-year-old was fatally shot early Saturday as he encountered thieves trying to steal his car's catalytic converter.
The shooting intersection of Hope across the Pico.
Wachter's family tells NBC News he was leaving a job at a downtown bar later than usual, walking with a coworker when he noticed a man near his car. Wachter's mother said her son asked if he was about to be towed, but when a man looked up wearing a mask, Wachter shielded his coworker with his body, and that suspect shot him.
It's just such a senseless thing.
Scarlett Wachter spoke to us by phone.
I hope that they will catch whoever did it. I hope that there will be some kind of justice for Johnny.
I want you to tell me.
Wachter was best known for his role as Brando Corbin on General Hospital, appearing in 164 episodes of the popular daytime soap. Wachter's colleagues remembering a dear friend. General Hospital posting, he was truly one of a kind. His TV wife writing, my heart is so utterly broken. Johnny was the absolute best.
He lived life to the fullest. He always tried to be positive for everybody. He was a light in a dark room, and he will be very missed.
And regarding these catalytic converter crimes, they are by far an isolated incident. In fact, so many have happened across the country that more than a dozen states have actually taken steps to try to crack down on not only the theft, but also resale on the black market. Meanwhile, Los Angeles Police Department says that they don't have any description of the suspects, but this very much remains an active investigation. Ellison.
NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky in L.A. Now to the red carpet uproar at the Cannes Film Festival, where some stars, including Kelly Rowland, faced off with a security guard trying to shuffle them away from cameras. The confrontations going viral, and one incident even appeared to become physical. NBC's Stephen Romo shows us how it unfolded.
Drama at the Cannes Film Festival this year in France, playing out not on the silver screen, but on the red carpet.
The woman knows what happened. I know what happened.
On the iconic steps leading into the festival, several stars clashing with ushers who tried to rush them along. Kelly Rowland appearing to scold a festival employee after she and several other ushers tried to hurry the former Destiny's Child singer up the stairs. Just one day later, that same usher stopping Dominican actress Maciel Taveras before the premiere of The Count of Monte Cristo, preventing her from unfurling a show-stopping train which featured an image of Jesus. Taveras appearing to defy the usher, pushing her away from entering the venue, later posting a photo on Instagram showing the full dress on display indoors. Ryan Abrillo, a photographer who captured that video of Taveras, has covered the Cannes Film Festival for years.
You could just describe what you saw this year at the film festival that was different than last year.
It's aggressive. It's completely different. I just told you I've been filming, taking photographs since 10 years, but this year, 2024, is completely different. It's aggressive.
He says he noticed 2 to 3 celebrities per day being handled aggressively.
I have a boundary, and I stand by those boundaries, and that is it.
Rowland standing by her actions and appearing to suggest race may have played a role.
And there were other women that attended that carpet that did not quite look like me, and they didn't get there scolded or pushed off or told to get off. And I stood my ground, and she felt like she had to stand hers, but I stood my ground. And that was it.
Taveras showing her support for Rowland on Instagram, writing, "I didn't know that happened to you first. I was very impressed how calm and genteel you were, because in my case, I was tired of the abuse." And now video emerging showing Korean actress and former K-pop star Yoona hurried along by the same security guard on May 19th. Yoona apparently taken by surprise. The Cannes Film Festival and the 3 celebrities involved have not returned NBC's request for comment.
Stephen joins us now. You know, this story has interested me because there's so much chatter about it online. There are, I've heard some people say, a lot of rules for walking any red carpet. Are there rules? Is this a scenario where they just weren't enforcing them in the past?
Well, from what I can tell, Cannes actually has a pretty strict red carpet rule set. I'm not a red carpet expert, but here it certainly seems like there are a large set of rules. Particularly in 2018, they banned selfies. Now, that is not actually for celebrities. It seems more that's for regular people, normal humans. They slowed things down, stopping and trying to get good selfies because the celebrities are getting plenty of photos on their own. But they also, back in 2016, there was a ban requiring women to wear high heels. There was a ban on flat shoes for women, and that outraged quite a few people. Julia Roberts actually went barefoot to the film festival that year, seen as sort of a protest against it. But it seems like as red carpets go, this is one of the stricter ones out there.
Stephen Romo, thank you. When we come back, Nicki Minaj returning to the stage after she was arrested in Amsterdam. The singer detained by police on suspicion of having drugs in her bags. Her message to her fans tonight after she was forced to postpone her concert that night. And Mike Tyson suffering a medical emergency on a cross-country flight. What we're hearing from his team. That's next. Back now with Top Stories news feed, and we begin with the arrest of a suspect who authorities say carried out multiple stabbings in Massachusetts. Police say the suspect entered a movie theater just outside of Boston and stabbed a group of 4 young girls before fleeing the scene. The victims were taken to the hospital and are expected to be okay. Authorities believe the same suspect stabbed 2 employees at a McDonald's in Plymouth before leading police on a car chase to Cape Cod, where he crashed and was arrested. Police say the suspect may be connected to a death in Deep River, Connecticut. He's due in district court tomorrow. A health scare for boxing legend Mike Tyson while on board a flight. Representatives for Tyson say he became nauseous and dizzy during an ulcer flare-up on a flight from Miami to Los Angeles. Medical staff treated him after the plane touched down, and his reps say he's now, quote, doing great. Tyson is set to face off against Jake Paul later this summer for his first professional boxing match in almost 20 years. Singer-rapper Nicki Minaj returning to the stage after she was arrested at the Amsterdam airport on suspicion of carrying drugs. Minaj was live streaming on Instagram Saturday when authorities stopped her. The video shows her speaking to police before getting into their van. The star was released from custody after several hours, but forced to postpone her concert in Manchester, England. She apologized to fans in a statement and rescheduled that show for June 3rd. And officials in Ohio issuing a warning to residents about the spread of a highly poisonous plant. Researchers from Ohio's Department of Natural Resources say poison hemlock is becoming common in backyards across the state. According to officials, ingesting any part of the plant can be deadly, and hemlock could easily be confused for parsley or wild carrots. Contact with the plant's sap can also cause toxic reactions, so use of protective gear is recommended when removing growth. Now to a new development in the failed coup attempt in the Democratic Republic of Congo. A 3rd American has been publicly identified and is accused of being part of the coup attempt. His family telling the Associated Press he is now in jail. That American, Tyler Thompson, is seen here surrounded by Congolese soldiers. His family also says that their son was on vacation, his first overseas with family friends, and that he was not politically active. For more on this, I want to bring in Mvemba Pezo Desolele. He is a senior fellow and director of the Africa program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Mvemba, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time tonight. I want to start kind of on this angle that so many people in this country seem to be curious about when it comes to this apparent coup attempt, and it is those U.S. ties, right? The alleged leader of this failed coup, Christian Malanga, he lived in the United States for many, many years. He was killed in a shootout with guards at the presidential palace. His son, Christian, was a seemingly very average all-American kid. He's now in jail. This guy, Tyler, he apparently played football with Christian at their high school in Utah. From your standpoint and your expertise, what should people know about this in relation to the U.S. ties?
Thank you very much for having me. This is a developing story. Christian Malanga lived in Utah for many years, indeed, but I think he left the U.S. for a couple years now, or a few years living somewhere in Africa. He seems to be the only one of the 30 to 50 elements who committed this event here, who led this. From the pictures that we saw on the social medias, you know, he streamlined some of this event himself, Christian that is. It was most of a motley crew. These seemed to be a group of civilian kids who didn't have any military training. You could see them actually when they invested the Palais de la Nation, where President Tshisekedi works, that they seem actually lost. So as far as the American ties go, it's not very clear how all of them ended there. Of course, Marcel was Christian's son, I think followed his father. His mother has since made comment on social media claiming that her son is innocent, that he just followed his father there. Part of the question mark is really what were they trying to achieve? The way they went about this, it's not the traditional way any coup anywhere is carried. They attacked the residence of a politician at 4:30 in the morning. And then where that didn't work, they went to the office where the president works, and the president doesn't live there. So more questions than answers at this time.
You mentioned President Tshisekedi. He was reelected in December last year. In 2018, that was when he first won the office of the presidency. And it was a very big deal at the time. And I know you've written extensively on this because there was this peaceful exchange of power between an incumbent and an opposition candidate. But the results were pretty quickly questioned. Then this vote for his second reelection in December, it wasn't perfect. And I think you've described it as that. But courts ultimately said no to requests from opposition groups for some sort of rerun, who were groups that were questioning the legitimacy of those results. I'm curious right now, do you believe President Tshisekedi has the support of his people today? And how would you describe the current political climate in the DRC?
President Tshisekedi was re-elected. This was, of course, contentious, like most elections are these days anywhere else in the world. The challenge for the DRC is that it finds itself in a very challenging place. There's conflict in the East that doesn't seem to end. It's been going on for nearly 30 years. The West is not fully functional because governance is weak. There are a lot of issues with mismanagement of natural resources, mismanagement of revenues from the natural resources. So there's a level of unhappiness. Whatever Christian Malanga was thinking remains a guess because he's not here to tell us what he was thinking to accomplish. What is actually true is some of the grievances that he voiced in his video streaming remains relatively connected to the grievances of the population at large. It raises a set of questions on where Congo goes from here. It also shows that when traditionally Congo has had challenges from the East, people have sought to challenge the government in Kinshasa, often take up arms in the eastern part of Congo, where you have over 50 militia groups, depending on who's counting. Nobody typically does this in Kinshasa. So for the first time, you have a group of people who struck really at the nerve center of power in Kinshasa, making their way right into where the president works. This is what is concerning to a lot of people because it exposes certain serious weaknesses within the security apparatus.
So where does the country go from here? And when it comes to the people who were allegedly involved in this coup attempt, particularly those Americans now in custody of the Congolese army, do we see them in court sometime? What happens to them next?
I suspect that they will go to court, they go to the process, but Congolese authorities also understand that these are not people who were used to fomenting coups. These are teenagers, young people in their 20s, and really the full sense of what just happened last Sunday, nobody seems to grasp at this point. So Congolese authority will follow the law, of course. Nobody should tolerate any such misadventure into the seat of power in their country. But I think as long as they are not pushed by the State Department and let the process work out, there is a possibility for some leniency for this element. I do not think that they scared anybody in any meaningful way, but obviously they challenge the authority of states, and that has a price.
Mbemba Pezo Dizolele, thank you. Coming up on Global Watch, the volcanic eruption forcing thousands of people to evacuate in the heart of the Ring of Fire. The latest on the danger next. We're back now with top stories. Global Watch. Villages in Indonesia evacuating after a major volcanic eruption. Surveillance video showing a nearly 4-mile-high ash cloud spewing into the sky above Mount Ibu early this morning. Local authorities there evacuating nearly 2,000 residents across 7 different villages. Mount Ibu sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, which has more than 100 active volcanoes. And the Colombian government beginning its exploration of an 18th century shipwreck. Underwater footage shows the San Jose Galleon more than 600 meters below the surface. The Spanish ship sank near the port of Cartagena in 1708 after a gunfight with the British fleet. It is thought to be carrying gold coins and chests of jewels worth billions of dollars. And this Memorial Day, we do want to highlight an issue that is impacting veterans long after their service. Some who served worried that their current health issues can be blamed on so-called forever chemicals found in drinking water at a now closed naval air station in Pennsylvania. Lucy Bustamante from our NBC station in Philadelphia has this story.
Started as a reservist in 1973.
And for 34 years, Air Force veteran Joe McGrath served on the Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base Willow Grove.
The writing on the wall became that the base was going to close.
Most of the base ceased operations in 2011. The same year, the U.S. Department of Defense and the Environmental Protection Agency confirmed toxic chemicals were in the site's groundwater and eventually in the drinking water supply for the base and the surrounding neighborhoods. Those chemicals, per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are commonly known as PFAS, or forever chemicals. That's because they take such a long time to break down. They can be found in everyday items like clothing and cookware, also in firefighting foam. It is believed the use of the foam for training caused the base contamination. According to the EPA, PFAS have been linked to harmful health effects in humans and in animals. The U.S. Department of Defense has been addressing the base's PFAS issues since 2014. In a statement, it tells us in part, quote, DOD remains committed to fulfilling our PFAS-related cleanup responsibilities, end quote. Joe is wondering if his symptoms of eczema had anything to do with the water he used for decades at the base.
I've been to 6 dermatologists, and everything's inconclusive.
He enrolled in a CDC study where researchers are analyzing which diseases correlate to PFAS levels in the blood. His levels, 384 nanograms per milliliter. Just to put that into perspective, the Environmental Protection Agency announced federal safety limits for PFAS chemicals in the drinking water should be no more than 4 parts per trillion. The EPA once reported the base had 300,000 parts per trillion.
I want an answer. Everything that crops up, you think, is that PFOAs? Is that a result of 34 years?
Dr. Risa Jones is running the study. She's the CDC's principal investigator and Temple University's chair of epidemiology and biostatistics. Dr. Jones told Joe they won't know for a while if his disease was caused by PFAS exposure.
We have about 30% of our adults are in that high-risk group of greater than 20 parts per trillion in their blood, and about 4.5% of children.
Dr. Jones is also involved in a Pennsylvania state study looking at cancer cases from 2000 to 2020 in 12 different Pennsylvania counties, including Bucks and Montgomery.
We actually already have preliminary evidence where we're finding that the highest concentrations of PFAS are actually correlated with cancer. If we can have good evidence to make the connection that something is really related or associated with disease, then it would make sense to hold the groups that produced it or exposed people to it accountable.
And that's one reason why Congresswoman Madeleine Dean reintroduced the PFAS water bill.
And I want people who have been harmed to be compensated.
She wants those affected by PFAS to be able to sue the manufacturer of the chemicals and the products where they are found.
They knew of the hazards. They knew of the health consequences.
In a statement, PFAS manufacturer 3M says in part, quote, we will continue to work to address legacy PFAS and says it will stop making PFAS by the end of 2025. The others we reached out to either had no comment or haven't replied. Good. As for Joe, he says the VA isn't covering his PFAS exposure yet. He showed us these letters denying coverage for his case from the VA.
And the VA is not covering anything at this point.
We asked the VA Secretary, Dennis McDonough, what veterans exposed to PFAS should do.
While there is not currently a presumption of service connection for PFAS, a presumption is not at all required to receive VA benefits.
Joe says he'll keep trying, and he hopes the politicians do too.
I may be dead and gone by the time anything is resolved.
Lucy Bustamante, NBC 10 News.
Right now, if a veteran or service member wants to know whether or not they have those forever chemicals in their blood, they have to pay for it out of pocket. It's about $200 to $300. NBC News continues to press the Department of Defense and the VA, asking when this test will be covered. Coming up, the lifelong tribute to honor a World War II hero. Finally tonight, a story of the ultimate sacrifice one U.S. soldier made during World War II and the woman who spent 80 years making sure her village never forgets. Megan Fitzgerald has more on the emotional meeting decades in the making.
In this small French village just outside Normandy and thousands of miles from the U.S., proof you don't have to be an American to be grateful for our fallen heroes. Every year, people here and across France honor the sacrifice the U.S. military made in World War II. But this celebration is different from 94-year-old Marie Bastien, who briefly left the hospital to be here. It was the 13th of August, she says. Marie was just 14 years old in 1944, 2 months after D-Day, when American troops were pushing deeper into France to liberate the country from Nazi Germany. U.S. Army Air Force pilot Paul Shofty was flying above Marie's village of Saint-Hélier-le-Bois when his P-47 fighter plane was struck by enemy fire. Shofty managed to bail out of the aircraft, but his parachute didn't work. Marie's father found his body in a field not far from her home. They brought him with a Jeep to our backyard, she says. That's when I saw him. It's a memory that stayed with Marie for her entire life and one she passed down to her children. She remembers it like it was yesterday. Paul Shofty giving his life on the same day Marie's village was liberated. Now, 80 years later, Marie and her daughter meeting Shofty's great-niece Nicole Saunders and her family for the very first time.
I think it's amazing that Marie wanted to have this ceremony. She wanted, I think she didn't want to pass on without having it happen that Paul was memorialized here in Saint-Hélier-le-Bois.
Saunders and her family getting the chance to see for themselves where her great-uncle died.
Like experience that and be there with the family of the person who found him. You know, that was amazing.
Back in the center of town, the entire village coming out to show their gratitude and teaching Saunders and her family about their own history.
Well, what I knew growing up was simply that he was a pilot for the United States Army Air Force and that he was shot down over France in 1944.
Covered in a parachute and unveiled for the first time, Shofty's name etched into a plaque. Nicole's dad, Shofty's 84-year-old nephew who couldn't make the trip, found a way to be here.
It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful tribute to my Uncle Paul.
They're the last of a generation to remember. Nicole and her sons are the next to make sure we never forget.
Seeing the children here and visiting the school and how it's remembered even with the next generations, and taking that and then hopefully passing that on back home in Utah.
Strangers from across the Atlantic forever bonded by their hero.
To be able to have come here and feel like we have family on the other side of the world because they cared for my great uncle a long time ago.
Megan Fitzgerald, NBC News.
Our thanks to all those who served their families and today especially to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. And thank you at home for watching Top Story on this Memorial Day. I'm Ellison Barber in New York for Tom Llamas. More News Now is on the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.